What was your? Because I got to admit,
Yeah.
did you have like an audible gasp on the interception? Did you like kind of? Was it like a jolt where you? I'll admit, I didn't think Carson Beck was going to pull it off. It's not that I thought that he was going to pull it off, but the way that play ended with the ball being so underthrown and kind of like it felt like such a poor pass, poor decision that I was like, oh gosh, it was like it caught me a little off guard with the ending.
I'll share the text exchange I had with my dad watching the game. He says, "How appropriate pick." I said, "Death taxes and Beck interceptions," and he laughed. And look, Beck has had a really good playoff. We talked about this going into the game last week. He only had the one interception, which he threw against Ole Miss. Of course, he redeemed himself by running for the touchdown that put them in the national championship. But statistically speaking, he made very few mistakes over the 3 playoff games they played prior to this. And it's like, all right, at some point, he's going to slip. He's going to have a mistake. He's going to have something that ends up costing him the game. And that ends up being what happened last night. And I haven't gone back and watched that final play over again, but I don't believe he had any options, in the short area of the field that he could have gotten to get a couple of yards or get somebody out of bounds. So it seemed like it was going to be kind of an all or nothing type of play, which Miami didn't need to do in that moment. They still had time, still under a minute to go on the clock. They didn't have any timeouts, but they still could have moved the ball a little bit closer before having to really launch it down the field. But they made the choice they did, and again, he ends up having a bad throw that gets picked off, and the rest is history.
We'll talk a lot about that game. I'm more interested in the sustainability of Indiana and what we kind of take away from that, Tyler, already. Because here's what I find. I don't know if I'm trying, and I'm really interested to do this show. Some shows you show up more excited for than others. It's not that I'm not prepared, but I'm interested to hear input on your input and others' input on how we view Indiana. And let me give you the perfect example, as if I didn't need more to kind of like confuse me or to make me question. Earlier today, CBS Sports, Brandon Marcello puts out his way too early top 25, right? Have you seen this? Have y'all discussed this earlier?
We haven't discussed it, but I saw it.
Okay, well, number one, South Carolina's in there at 25. We'll get to that at some point during the show as well. These things are stupid and they're fun. I put out a tweet about that.
We're going to spend the next month debating these kind of things.
They're incredibly stupid, right? Like, we're still trying to figure out the portal and who knows what's going to NFL.
The confetti is still falling from the roof in Miami.
I couldn't even tell you truthfully. I honestly don't know. I didn't even think to count this until I just was going to bring it. How many NFL jobs are still available?
Good point.
Do you know off the top of your head?
Let's see. Harbaugh's hired. Stefanski. Hafley's going to be hired.
Yeah.
Salah's going to go to the Titans. There's still 3. Bills obviously fired McDermott this weekend. At least 3 or 4. And that's not even including coordinators and all that stuff.
And if we're being honest, I don't think he's going to leave. I wouldn't put my money on it. But I'd feel like there isn't an owner or a GM who doesn't look at Kirk Cignetti and be like, I've seen what you've done now everywhere.
Oh, of course.
How much? What is it? What do you want? 15?
His
15
phone's
million?
blowing up. They'll give him as much Chipotle as he wants to eat to come coach for them.
But I say all that because these way too early top 25s they're hilarious and stupid and funny. And then we're gonna talk about them because because they're fun to talk about. But Brandon Marcello with CBS puts his out, and there's Indiana at 8, and I kind of want to be like, come on, man. Just put Indiana at number 1, not because they won it, but because Kirk Cignetti just did it like year 1, technically. He did it with Kurt Rourke and a cast of characters. And Kurt, year 2, he goes out and he basically builds Fernando Mendoza and other people in a cast of characters, and they do something. What was the crazier stat last night to you? That this hadn't happened since Yale in the 1800s, or that this hadn't that no team in men's or that the last men's undefeated regular season came from Indiana. Like, I mean, was it men's basketball? How do I word that? Men's basketball regular season,
right?
32-0 came from Indiana.
That's probably the wilder stat and the one that's harder to accomplish, both coming from a school, because you thought, oh, there was a Kentucky team that almost did it, Duke teams, Kansas teams over the years. Figured somebody would have gone out there and gone wire undefeated since then, but I've said it didn't happen. And by the way, that 1894 Yale team, they were playing a lot of local YMCAs and athletic clubs, so I don't think we can quite compare these two. I think this 16-0 is a little bit more impressive than that. If you go and look at their schedule, they were playing a lot of nobodies and people that were probably working day jobs and trying to play football at night. So I wouldn't quite count that in the same way for Yale, unfortunately.
Not the same. All right. Well, we'll get more into the game, but again, my questions to Tyler will revolve more around the sustainability. And I'll ask you first. Let's go big picture. 803-404-6100. Let's start really, really big picture. Of the two teams that played for the national championship last night, and I've asked people this since I started asking this question about the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you give the odds of more likely being back in the next 2 years to?
Indiana, because I believe more in the head coach.
Hold on to that one. All right, because you got Miami, who I feel like this is going to improve who they are more so with that recruiting and Cristobal, and they've got the easier path right now as it stands in the ACC.
And they're not gonna fall off by any means.
No, their NIL deals and everything they take a back seat to no one. But then, as you just pointed out, I look at Indiana and I'm like, this thing feels like it's built. This is the crazy part. It feels like Indiana's built to be Alabama.
Yeah.
For a decade if they keep Kirk Cignetti.
There have been so many Saban assistants to come off that tree. Cignetti looks like the closest spitting image to him with the way he composes himself, his standard for excellence. And that's not to say that, the Kirby Smarts and the Dan Lannings and the Steve Sarkisians aren't like that, but Cignetti looks like if you took Nick Saban and molded him out of a different lump of clay with all the same personality traits, it's the same guy.
Northern guy, yeah. I mean, there's a lot there.
Scowling while they're, winning games by 30 and 40 points. Like, he's just a different kind of dude.
Yeah. And we'll talk about his intestinal fortitude also, because last night, if you get into the game, boy, I feel like I was in the minority watching the game with Herb Street and Fowler on going for it 17-14. Was it 17? Why do I feel like it was 17-14? Or whatever they went for, and Mendoza made what will now go down as one of the plays of all time of college football, twisting, turning, knifing, and diving into the end zone.
Yeah, it was 17-14.
Okay, all right, and making sure I was right on that. But 17-14 at that point to go up 10. We'll talk a lot about that. Also, NFL this weekend. NFL's delivering, man.
It's been phenomenal. There have been a few duds, but fewer and far between.
I mean, NFL's delivering. I put a video out on Saturday night. Was it Saturday? Saturday night. Trade them all. The Bills' window's closed.
Okay.
Trade them all. And then they fire Sean McDermott.
Yep.
Get rid of it all. We'll talk about that. NFL was great. Transfer portal. South Carolina has another big weekend from the transfer portal. One guy leaves, comes back, leaves again. That was good times. We'll talk a lot about what happened there and plenty of other stuff. We'll get back into this CBS Sports Way Too Early Top 25 and share with you some fun stuff from that and giggle and laugh and genuinely have a good Tuesday. I hope you're doing good. Hope you enjoyed your 3-day weekend for those of you that got that. Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer, Bill Gunner, we're here to kind of get you through until 3 o'clock today. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for over 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and it is that history, those 30 years, that is your assurance that their professionals will get the job done for you. And not only that, but they'll get the job done in a safe, pleasing, and timely manner for you and your operation, whether it's your home or your business. Mid-State Roofing is there to make sure that they keep your operation dry and running long into the future. But most importantly, they are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You heard that right. You can give them a phone call at 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You get the point. Mid-State Roofing has got an on-call technician ready to receive your phone call, help you with a maintenance contract or any roof leakage that you have. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919, and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. $12:20 on a Tuesday. If you want to play a little drinking game, why not? See how many times I refer to today as Monday.
I did that this morning right off the jump. I've been better since then.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you almost like, it's almost a treat to yourself as the week goes along. We're like, oh, today's Tuesday. Actually, it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, today's Wednesday. Actually, it's Thursday. Like, You're having that Monday off makes the rest of your week better because it's that much shorter.
All right, let me ask you this. And let me ask all of y'all this, because I put this out on Twitter. This isn't on our rundown. I saved some stuff to just throw at you to get your actual opinion. Like, you got to think about it for a second. I'm doing this to you right now.
Okay.
Because I don't agree with this. I don't think I agree with this. So I put out yesterday, because we're talking about having yesterday off, and this is apparently what we're going to do for this championship. We're going to play it on Martin Luther King night.
Next year's on the 25th. I'm not sure. It may not be on that day next year.
Is next year the 25th?
Next year's the 25th.
I'm sorry. Is next year a Monday on the 25th?
It's a Monday for the foreseeable future, but I think the 25th is too late.
All right.
So I think it might be the following Monday.
All right. It's even worse than Martin Luther King Day because we all don't have that day off. I put on Twitter last night, I was tongue-in-cheek joking, but I'm asking y'all this too. 803-404-6100. So I already got one poll question out. I'm going to put this on Twitter. I'm going to put both of them on Twitter, and you can go and vote there.
By the way, it is not MLK Day next year. It is the week after.
Okay, yeah, the 25th. Number one, first poll question, who would you take to be back in that championship game within the next, I'll say 3 years, just we'll round up. 3 seems a little bit more fair.
Okay.
Indiana or Miami? Tyler said Indiana.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that's poll question 1. 803-404-6100. Who do you take more likely to be back in the national championship game in the next 3 years? Indiana or Miami? Number 2, and if the natural answer to this is NFL. I got that. If you had a Saturday night where Amazon Prime is hosting an NFL playoff game against the national championship game, who wins that ratings battle? Now, mind you, there are caveats to that question because that playoff game, I like Packers-Bears, I feel like is going to draw a larger crowd. Maybe I'm crazy on this than like Seahawks 49ers. I feel like Seahawks, two West Coast teams, not that the 49ers aren't a national brand, not that the Seahawks aren't fun to watch.
Sure.
But I put that out yesterday, and I had a couple people respond like, well, no, the NFL would crush them in ratings. And at first I was like, yeah, we all know that. And then as I thought about it last night, I was like, that's a theory of a lot of people that now that I start thinking about, like, I'm not sure – it's going to depend on who plays each other, right?
Yeah.
Like, some of it's going to depend on the matchups of what the two games are. That, by the way, I feel stupid. I feel so. I just did the 6-7 thing with my hands on the video stream. But you saw.
It's okay.
As I started doing, I was like, "Dummy, stop that." But with that being said, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that an NFL game, the rating is just wipe away a college football national championship game.
Yeah, I don't think crush is probably the right words because that's assuming that, you're beating them by 8 to 10 million viewers. And you're right, the matchup would factor a lot into that. Now, if the NFL were going up against the college football playoff, I think they would put the most compelling matchup there at all possible. So if you had the option for Bears and Packers, you'd probably put it in that slot because that's going to draw.
But here, let me go back to a caveat on this. If college football looks around, because I think it was 2 weeks ago that the Bears Packers was on Amazon Prime, so it was streaming.
Yes.
And if you can't get them to work together, and there's a lot of like asterisks to this and things that I get it. It's not. I'm not throwing out a perfect scenario to you. But if you go, all right, NFL's got the Amazon Prime game on that Saturday night. We're going to put ours on ESPN on what is still regular television.
Right.
I don't because I wonder if this is what we're going to have. Like we can talk about 12, 16, 24. But is this what we're getting as Monday night championship games? Is this going to be like college basketball? It's just ingrained in our mind?
Yeah.
All right, it's a Monday night game?
Pretty much. Now, I do think, especially considering the fact we're playing so late into the calendar now, again, next year's game is going to be on January 25th, you're getting into the later stage of the NFL playoffs where it's not taking up the whole day, right? Like the NFL playoffs started at 4:30 on Saturday. They had a 4:30 game and an 8 o'clock game. And again, the NFL is not always going to be willing to budge, but if you could find a way where they'd be willing to move those games up.
12 and 4:30?
12 and 4:30 to where you have 8. And look, I don't mind a later start on a Saturday night because we're not getting up and going to work the next day. If you can get an 8 o'clock start on Saturday night after the NFL playoff games are out of the way, that'd be phenomenal. Now, again, I don't know if the NFL would be willing to move out of there, but it's a lot easier because, again, we started doing this in the BCS era where, the championship game was being played on January 5th or 6th or 7th or something like that amidst either the closing weekend of the NFL season or the first round of the NFL playoffs, where they had wall-to-wall games where you didn't really have a lot of room to fit in. When you're playing it later and later, you're only having to navigate around 2 more games now. So you're like, okay, I feel like we're as close as ever in terms of where you could go on a Saturday the NFL will be willing to work with.
I'm curious in that because I think the natural assumption for everybody is to say, well, what people hit me up with Twitter yesterday was, well, no, the NFL would blow the rating, would blow college football out of the water. And
I think they'd still win. I don't know if they blow them out of the water.
The point on that is, like, I think the people who say that put their head in the sand and don't know. I honestly don't think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think they know what they're talking about because you're making a lot of assumptions, as we just said, on who the games are. I'll be interested. I haven't seen the numbers today. I didn't look. I didn't bother looking what the early numbers were on what the ratings for this year's national championship game are against the ratings last year for two. You would say 2 more brand names, higher brand names. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami's a brand name. Indiana's not.
And that was the surprising thing is last year's the ratings weren't as good as people thought, despite having 2 of the biggest brands in the sport playing. And a lot of people attribute that because of how late it was in the calendar compared to years past. So yeah, I think maybe the intrigue of what Indiana was doing and the U being back, so to speak, could bump those numbers up a little bit. But we'll see. But again, I wouldn't expect the college football to win that ratings battle head to head. But I think it'd be a lot closer than people would expect.
Yeah, and I don't think in an ideal world, college football and the NFL come together and say, I tell you what, here's what we're going to do as the NFL. We're going to play a noon of a 3:30 or whatever, however you want. You get the point with the time slots, but a noon, a 4, and then hey, you get the night. Now that means the NFL has to budge a little bit and take a back seat, which again we know they're not really willing to do. But
and the NFL, they print money no matter what they do, but they pay nothing for college football. College football is their unaffiliated minor league, and what it does is helps build their stars, right? So I think it would benefit the NFL when you have a game between 2 of the best teams in the country where a lot of those guys can be going on to the NFL the next year. That helps build their star power. So I would think the NFL would be willing to budge a little bit to allow that game to stand on its own on a Saturday to help further whatever these next stars are going to be in your league.
I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't know if enough of y'all care about the national championship game. Last night was an interesting storyline from the standpoint of Indiana. I don't know what we're going to get next year, and I don't know if people are footballed out by the time we get to MLK Day.
But it gets to the point where there was a 10-day gap between the semifinals and the national championship. It felt like a lifetime ago, right? Like college football is a boom, 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 boom sport where it's just one after the other after the other. And when you get into a 2-week stretch where you have 3 games over the course of basically 21 days, you fall out of rhythm with it. And the casual observer may forget the game's on completely.
803-404-6100. We'll get into some South Carolina football, the transfer portal, and the Gamecocks picking up multiple prospects over the weekend. Who all did they get? What all did they do? We'll try and go back and break it down for you. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market. Valentine, I got to go ahead and start warning you because I know how you guys are, and a lot of you are like me, and you got a lot of things on your plate. Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Let me tell you, I get it, going out to eat and all that. It sounds like a great idea until you realize reservations are a pain in the rear end. go ahead now and start thinking about that lovely Valentine's dinner with that significant other and getting a great steak or pork chops or chicken or fish from Old Timey Meat Market, your home for Valentine's Day, where they've got incredible specials. Don't believe me? Go find out for yourself. Visit one of their 3 locations, St. Andrews Road in Irmo, South Congaree, or the Lexington store. And let me tell you, if you're looking for a Valentine's Day gift, go visit the Lexington store, your Traeger Grill's home. Let me tell you, everybody needs a great Traeger grill. And at the Lexington store, they're going to make sure you're taken care of. Stop by Old Timey Meat Market today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. It is 12:34 on a Tuesday, coming off last night's national championship game. Indiana doing it through the transfer portal. A lot of debate. Tyler, how much money did they really spend? How big of a part was Mark Cuban? We debated last week a little bit about culture versus coaching and NIL and all this and that. I mean, if you followed the NIL, we really don't know what's true and what's not. We get these crazy figures, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't legitimately know what all these deals equal up to or how much said player got and what's legitimate. What we know is that Indiana went out through the transfer portal. What we know to be true is that they didn't go find a ton of, like, big-name transfers. Fernando Mendoza was the number 4 quarterback in the transfer portal. He kind of was the highlight. It wasn't the highlight, but he was kind of maybe a little bit better than some people give him credit for. But whatever they did it through the portal, and it worked.
Yes.
So let's tie that back in. South Carolina now, the portal is still portaling. You just can't jump into it anymore.
Yeah, now you're filling out the last bits of your roster, and I believe Carolina still has 11 scholarships they can use, and I think you're to the point now where you're probably adding a lot of just like depth guys, the high level producers of on the field, mostly been snatched up, and Carolina's gotten a few of those, which is good. But I think now you're kind of, and we'll get into some of these guys they added here in a minute. A lot of these guys may not even end up seeing the field a whole lot this year at certain spots, but you're filling out those rooms, make sure you have depth, make sure you have the bodies you need for practice and all those kind of things. But I will say I've been pretty pleased with what they've gotten in the portal so far, and there's a lot of guys that you look at and say, okay, that guy's played a lot of college football. I can see him exerting into whatever role, or whatever position he's going to be playing, and going out there and being the starter and the main contributor at that spot.
Yeah, by the way, I don't mean to infer that South Carolina's gone out and done this the way Indiana has with landing guys. But one thing that you pointed out, there seems to be an emphasis on landing guys with a lot of experience.
Yes.
If you kind of look at what they've, especially on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start. Over the weekend, one of the things, I don't know how people kind of took this, but how do I say this? Lucian? Am I saying that?
Yes,
Lucian. Is it Lucian? Not Lucian? Lucian?
Lucian is the way that I've heard it pronounced.
All right, I want to make sure I'm right with you. You got Chris and Wes on, who it's their responsibility to talk to these guys.
Right.
I defer to you.
Or at least get a phonetics for how to say their names.
I like that. I like to pick up. You don't want this guy to play. No offense to him. If we get to this guy, we got major issues.
We got problems. But no, I think it's a smart ad, and this is one we've talked about for a couple of weeks. If one, you only had 3 scholarship quarterbacks when Aaron Nolan left, and typically BMR teams have at least 4, so you had an opportunity to add one more guy, and if worse comes to worse, knock on wood, Sellers gets banged up, has to miss a series or a half of a game, which we've seen a lot of, especially early in the season, his time at Carolina, I'd feel a lot more comfortable handing over to a guy that at least has a couple college starts than a Cutter Woods, who's played a handful of snaps last year, or a Landon Duckworth who has 0 college experience. Now, that's not saying that Cutter Woods doesn't end up being the number 2 guy in the long term, to where, if, again, God forbid, in the Clemson game, he needed somebody to come in and make some plays.
Don't say that. Don't say that, because look at the 2 years.
Mm.
Lenore Sellers has missed a half against LSU that potentially cost you. We can play ifs, ands, or what's all we want. Potentially cost you a college football playoff berth in 2024.
Right.
And then missed a game against Vanderbilt, which may have charted the course for your season this year, to where I may not have. Again, we can play that game all day. Let's not go ahead and do that. But there's precedent that this year, somebody in that quarterback room, and that's why I start with him, there's precedent that somebody in that quarterback room is going to have to play a meaningful half of football, given what we've seen from Lenore Sellers in the previous 2 years.
And that goes back to the discussion we had a lot leading into last year, was like, Luke Doty being in that quarterback number 2 role, because he just had experience that the other guys in that room didn't. Now, again, you weren't hoping you would have to turn to him in an expanded role like you did against Vanderbilt, where he had to play pretty much the entire second half of that game, but that's what happened. And again, that's not to say that Cutter Woods can't continue to develop, so by season's end, he is your confident number 2, that if Sellers went down, you could turn to him. But at least in the very beginning, having a guy with a couple of college starts and Lucian Anderson, you feel more comfortable about saying, hey, man, Sellers got hurt against Mississippi State, get in there and play the second half of the game, or something like that.
So that I think that's something, again, as we go toward the season, because a precedent has been set, and we know the way that Lenore Sellers plays. I'm not trying to call him injury prone, but again, conceivably, him missing the half against LSU, we know what that might have meant. Then he did miss a game. Thankfully, it was, I think, Akron.
Akron
was,
after that.
was that game. So
could he have played? Maybe, but
Yeah.
it was safe to sit him.
And quite frankly, he wasn't the same for the Ole Miss game.
He wasn't. No, and look, at that point, you had a guy in Robbie Ashford that, was willing to take on that role of saying, hey, I'm probably going to be the number 2 guy here, but if this guy goes down, they're going to insert me, and he did. And again, most quarterbacks around the country are looking for places to go and play. So you found a guy. He's closer to home. He's from Georgia originally, so South Carolina's a lot closer than Indiana. But he's willingly coming here, knowing he's probably not going to play a lot unless something goes wrong with the starter.
And that's kind of what you got to go out and grab. Going to the offensive line. All right, you got me a pronunciation on the last name of Armando.
Not Neves. One of those.
You can say whatever you want, and I'll say yes to you.
Well, that's not the harder name in terms of what they brought in this weekend.
I'm skipping that one just yet. Let's baby step our way to where we're going.
I do have phonetics on that one when we get there.
All right. Armando Nieves, 6'7", 315 pounds. And the reason I jump instantly to him, according to Pro Football Focus, played more than 600 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Finished played more than 600 snaps, but a run blocking grade of 59.6 and a pass blocking grade of 51.2.
Mm-hmm. Not stellar numbers, but again, this could be a guy that's just there for depth, right?
I think that's what you're hoping. But I also, 803-404-6100 if you disagree, I feel like you're bringing in competition right now. Like, I don't really think you're bringing in anybody. Jacarius Peak is probably...
That's probably one your tackle.
And to be quite honest, I also think you might be bringing Josiah Thompson in with the understanding of, like, hey, we're really wanting you to be the right tackle.
Yes.
But everybody else, you're like, okay, there's interior spots, and yes, there are tackle spots. You're here to compete. And Armando Nieves, or however we're going to pronounce it, 6'7", 315 again. You look at all these. He played right tackle last season,
mm-hmm.
but again, these are not numbers that I think you get really excited about if you're basing on his PFF grades against what left.
Sure, yeah. You don't look at him immediately and say, oh, man, there's definitely your right tackle. Like, could he come in here and earn the spot and get better and develop? Absolutely. And everybody's starting with a clean slate with this new offensive line coach, but he's not somebody that jumps off the page for you as much given what his prior production was at New Mexico State.
All right, and then the Gamecocks picked up another offensive lineman. Please, I'm not even going to attempt. You go right ahead.
Ebube Dike Nabugu.
One more time for all those out there that weren't quite ready.
Ebube Dike Nabugu. I think like Booby is like his nickname or something.
So on the upside of all this, and I say this jokingly because I like him, Todd Hills usually doesn't have to pronounce offensive linemen's names.
That's the point I brought up earlier, is hopefully if he does play, he's not committing penalties to where his name has to get brought up, because that, again, I'm looking at the phonetic spelling right now. It's still difficult, and if he's having to say that off the cuff, then that's going to be a problem.
Your thoughts there on bringing him in and what you saw, and I say this because I get it when we're talking depth here.
Yeah, and similar thing. He's played guard and he's played tackle. He's got experience albeit at a again, Missouri State did jump up this year, but primarily at a lower level. There at Missouri State, but again, it's a depth piece, competition, all that kind of stuff. If I had to guess, I'm assuming he's probably not going to be one of your starters on the offensive line. But again, you needed about 16, 17 guys to fill out that room, and
you
you're
want
about
a 3
that number.
deep is what they're going for. Remember that when you're seeing some of these guys coming in.
And right now, you're basically on that number.
Again, 6'3", 305. He spent the season at Missouri State. Started his career at Delaware State, where he played for 2 seasons. This past season, I think you just mentioned it, started 3 games at left guard, playing the rest of the season at left tackle, according to Pro Football Focus. I mentioned it, Tyler, 618 snaps at left tackle, 185 at left guard. We'll come back and we'll finish this conversation because I'll give you his pass blocking grade and his run blocking grade, and you compare those, and we'll kind of go from there. 803-404-6100. You're listening to The Halftime Show. All right, I've put the poll question out. You can go to Twitter at Will, W-I-L, Gunter, G-U-N-T-E-R. It's 35 seconds in, there's 3 votes, but they're all in favor of the Miami Hurricanes.
In terms of getting back there?
Who do you think is more likely to get back to the national championship game in the next 3 years? Now, both teams, we are under the assumption. I've given up. I will freely admit, when it comes to like trying to figure out if players have eligibility left, I've given up.
Yeah.
Because it feels also like I'm pretty sure Trinidad Chambliss is out of eligibility. Well, he is out of eligibility, but I feel like we're operating under the assumption even though the courts have already denied him,
Sure.
he's going to get that whatever 6th year.
Yeah, some kind of way. I figured once we got past all the COVID year guys, which should be at the very, very end of them now everybody's just suing. It's like, well, I played at FCS, so that shouldn't count, or I played at G5, that shouldn't count. I knew this was going to happen. But yeah, we're stretching it further and further here. So you can never assume anything. Is there a particular player you're making
Mendoza?
Yeah, Mendoza is going to go be a top pick. Like, he's not.
But Mendoza's going to be our 54th president. Okay, I was trying to do the math last night. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're at 47, right? President 47.
In terms of total people,
like whatever, however you want to do it. Like, Trump is 45 and 47.
Yes,
am I right? I'm right on that.
But there's only been 45 actual presidents. Yes,
but you see what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
however Trump is.
If you're future casting of what number president he would be, then 50 something.
And I'm not. Look, I'm not even going to try and lie to y'all. I don't. Politics is not even close to my thing. That little part of high school, like, what is the age you got to be qualified for 44 or 48?
It's somewhere in the 40s. Yeah, you got to be. So
let me just say this:
he would not be 45? eligible for another 20 years. 45. Okay, so
35. 35 is when it's not in your 40s. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I knew at a very early age I was not gonna be a president. Like, when that class was taking place in high school, I was like, nah, I'm good on this. I know that I'm not going to be a president. I'm zoned out. I'm good.
It is 35.
I couldn't believe it was that young.
Yeah. So I'll be launching my campaign in 2031.
Okay. So I was way off last night because I thought Mendoza was like 20 years away. Like, the dude's fun to listen to. I've come around on him. Come around on him.
Here's the funny thing. Watching the game with my wife last night when, the game's over and the interview him, Holly Rowe, whoever, I was like, get ready for the most motivational speech you've ever heard in your life. And, I love my guys, and my offensive line did a great job for me, which they didn't. He was under pressure a lot of that game. But still, praising everybody and obviously all those things, loves his family and all that stuff. And he's a Boy Scout, right?
Listen.
He is as far away from Johnny Manziel as you could get.
Fernando Mendoza makes Tim Tebow look like a biker gang leader. I mean, like,
good way to put it.
I mean, like, Tim Tebow may as well be the leader of some biker gang the way he talks compared to Mendoza. But anyway, I was going where I was going with that is I don't know what Mendoza's. He might look at the Raiders and be like, "Nah, man, I'm good, guys. Sorry."
Well,
or the Raiders and the Jets and whomever.
That's true. That was the joke of Dante Moore last week, like kind of doing the math, like, all right, I think the Jets are probably going to draft me if I go. Maybe I come back for another year. Now he's assuming the Jets aren't going to be there waiting for him in 2027, which they very well could be. So you can only escape for so long. But that is one of the interesting things about college football now, where theoretically, as a top-end quarterback, you can make in the $4 to $5 million range. Be like, you know what? Maybe I will come back to school for another year.
For those wondering, he's played for 3 years, so I believe he has another year of eligibility. Let's wrap up the portal conversation for South Carolina. One of the interesting pickups from over the weekend as it occurred, I can't remember if this was Thursday or Friday because I was off Friday, was the addition of Christian Clark, the running back. And we talked briefly about it. Let me just say this. I love it. I think it's a great pickup. Now, I don't know how good he's going to be, and let me be very clear about this. The way the portal works now for college football, South Carolina will not hold on to these 3 young running backs, Sam Dixon, Jabri Coleman, and now Christian Clark. But for 2026, you're going to have competition, and I love that. And you're going to have competition from guys who were high 3-star, low 4-star prospects that I think really help your running back room to go along with Matthew Fuller and Jawan Howe.
Yeah, it's a situation where the numbers of forced competition make everybody better, and who emerges, I don't know. Christian Clark, out of the 3 guys you brought in, has the most experience, so you would lean towards him. But maybe Jabri Coleman has something special about him where he pops off in spring or summer camp and he earns himself one of those top spots. Again, we know what you have in Matthew Fuller. We've seen a lot of things out of Jawan Howell. So it's a room that nobody's planted their flag in of like, I'm the guy. So it's a wide open competition.
There's a lot of good things to like about it. And then kind of as you mentioned, there's nobody that comes in that says like, I'm the guy. And now you get a lot of competition. So it'll be fun. Whatever it is we get to learn and are told about in the spring, to hear about what is going to be a very, very important position for the Gamecocks moving into 2026. We'll get back into last night's college football game and the NFL weekend as well. It's the halftime show. It is the 1 o'clock hour on the halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair, coming off national championship night in college football. I think we're all still trying to adjust a little bit to the is it lateness? Is that fair? Of wrapping up college football season on Martin Luther King Day, and do we care that it's on a Monday night? Do we want it on a Saturday night? Does it matter? At least they kicked off at 7:30.
Well, they kicked off at 7:53. If we're going to be very specific here. That's another thing too is the advertised kick time versus when the games actually kick off. Look, my entire life, the national championship's pretty much been on a Monday. I've gotten used to it at this point. I will still bang the drum for Saturday, but it's not going to deter me from watching it if it continues to be on Monday. I will say I think it hurts the sport overall the deeper we get this into the month of January because, again, as a sport, especially for a championship game, you're hoping to compel a lot of casual eyes, right? Like you and I are going to watch regardless because this is our jobs and we just love college football that much. But there's a lot of people that will kind of get out of the rhythm of college football. And quite frankly, like last year's national championship game, so many people said they forgot the game was even on. Like there's not as much hype building up to it because the semifinals were a week and a half before that, right? As opposed to, games being on one Saturday, then the next game being the Saturday after that. There's just not as much flow the deeper you get into this because you have so much space between these games now.
Every game is going to stand on its own merit in terms of what is the storyline. Fernando Mendoza was a great storyline. Indiana was a great storyline. Miami was a great storyline. Like these were all things that maybe would have caused you to remember or were more likely to tune in. My thing is going to be now that we have this extended playoff, and then as you've extended out even more, and if you go to 16, or when you go to 16, if you go to 24, I compare it, and I think I'm in the minority on this in terms of how much I love college basketball. Like right now, I'm a full-fledged hoop fan. Maybe not about the team around here, but about everybody else.
We'll have some tickets to give away for that game tonight coming up. Stay tuned.
We're going to give you all some tickets. Oklahoma and South Carolina. Gamecocks are favored, by the way. But when we get to the national championship in college basketball on that Monday night, it's anticlimactic.
Sure.
I don't think anybody cares. I'm not 100% sure most people can tell you who played in the national championship year after year after year. Like we love the event that is that is March Madness.
Yes.
We really love the first two weekends, and I'm not sure we're not going to grow to love the college football playoff more than we develop an affinity for crowning a national champion.
I'm glad you brought up March Madness because it is really funny the way we talk about teams, right? I feel like we focus so much on teams making the Final Four as opposed to that one team that wins the national championship. Like, oh, hey, Auburn's a Final Four team a year ago. Yeah, but Florida won the national championship. But that isn't like at the forefront when we talk about the best teams in college basketball. And you're right, because and college basketball is just one after the other after the other. There's not a ton of space between games, but I do think there's maybe a little fatigue factor by the time you get to the national championship. For one, it tips off at like 9:12 at night. So a lot of people, if they don't go to bed before it starts, going to bed at halftime or whatever. But it does kind of seem like it's like, all right, well, this is kind of the wrap up, so I'm going to watch it. But it doesn't have the same juice as you feel like it probably should have.
Yeah, and again, as a person who loves college basketball, the college basketball national championship game is like, if you had me start ranking, like let's just say like NHL playoff games and NBA and Major League Baseball, and then go to college football and college basketball, you get the College World Series, it would be actually pretty far down the list of watching the national championship game. I think a lot of people, whether you've grown tired of college basketball or not, feel the same. I could be wrong, but I feel the same way. And I wonder if we're going to grow that with college football, where we love Georgia, Mississippi, Miami. We love these semifinal, quarterfinal games, but then we get the championship game, and like you said, fatigue is set in.
And I think there's a point of college basketball as well, where for the majority of people, look, there are plenty of people out there like yourself that consume as much college basketball as they possibly can. But a lot of people are fans of their own team.
True.
They watch their team, may watch a couple other games if they're high profile enough, but aren't like sitting on their couch for an entire Saturday consuming college basketball from noon until 2 a.m. There are some people.
Oh, what a great day.
Yeah, there's some people that do that, certainly. But college football, there's a higher volume of people that just love watching the sport of college football that are going to be more into, hey, Indiana and Miami, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm going to watch the game because I just love college football. I don't think that same thing exists for sports like college basketball, for sports like college baseball.
Just speaking of which, you think anybody in Indiana is aware that their basketball team plays Michigan tonight? Like, that's a
Probably
huge
not.
rivalry game, and Michigan's number 3 in the country, and Indiana's.
I brought this point up earlier. For a lot of kids in this generation, the best moment at Assembly Hall is going to be watching a football game. Because they had the
Very
watch
true,
party last
yeah.
night that they showed, and like the legacy of Indiana basketball is phenomenal. But I think more people are going to remember watching a football game that was 7 states away as opposed to anything they've seen there in basketball.
I don't listen. I don't. 43 years of age. I don't consider Indiana a blue blood. I haven't seen it. I think they were in a championship game in the 80s, I believe, and I kind of vaguely remember. I was probably 6 or 7, watching it down in Charleston for Easter at a family. But I don't. Indiana has not done anything in basketball. I know they've gotten back to the championship game.
Sure.
I think it was Jared Jeffries and Mike Davis, I believe, was the coach who led them there in the early 2000s. And I believe that was the team that lost to Maryland, if I remember, and Gary Williams. But with that being said, Indiana has done nothing in my lifetime that makes me think of them a blue blood, whereas now in my lifetime, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, Indiana? The football school, right? Yes.
Exactly.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, it is crazy. And again, even though they haven't been phenomenal at basketball, it's been a lot better than what football's been the past couple years. I'm sure you've seen the picture of what Curt Cignetti's first game looked like not even 18 months ago when he was coaching there, because most people are like, all right, there's another coach, we'll chew him up and spit him out or whatever. I brought this point up to Jack earlier. I went back and found the tweet where Indiana football introduced Cignetti as a head coach. Now, typically for like a Power 4 school, when they introduce head coach, you're expecting thousands of retweets, maybe 30, 40 comments, all these kind of things. It had 5 comments. It had like 60 retweets and like 700 likes. For a Big Ten Power 4 school, like
With the largest of living alumni base.
largest living alumni base,
Yeah.
people just didn't care. And most of the comments were like, yeah, we haven't won anything in a bajillion years. Good luck to this guy. Funny how those people must be thinking right now. But like, even when Carolina introduced Shane Beamer, I went back, there was like 15 comments, there was thousands of likes, there was thousands of retweets. Like, people were engaged.
Right.
And like, again, I don't know what you set your expectations for, but there was more excitement about that hire for a guy that had never been a head coach before, not proven anything at being a head coach, coming to Carolina, another program that didn't have a ton of historical success overall. But there was more hype about that than Cignetti, who, again, had done a lot of winning as a head coach at other places.
And so what has led me to kind of move past the game and ask Tyler and asked y'all in a poll question on Twitter. And part of it is the sustainability of what Indiana did. And I'm going to get to a text message, a really good text message from Courtney Levitt here in just a second. And he's a guy who obviously has been around, has played college football, and has a good understanding of it. So I'll not only give him a name drop, but I'll read his text because you're talking about a guy who really knows what he's talking about. But I've put a poll question out on Twitter, and that is, who is more likely to be back in the national championship game in the next 3 years, Indiana or Miami? Because I do wonder, is what Indiana did, is it sustainable? Is this sustainable with Curt Cignetti? Miami, for good or for bad, the question's always, is the U back, right? Like,
Right.
we're always trying to gauge that. Well, they played in the national championship game last night. I assume they're back now at some point. I
I
don't
want
know.
to ask him about it.
Right. Oh, good Lord. But the point is like, I would assume that my natural assumption, because it's Miami, the resources, I believe, are greater, the name brand is greater, all that. But I look at Curt Cignetti, and I'm like, well, as long as they hold on to him, to me, Indiana's here to stay for as long as Curt Cignetti wants them to stay.
Yeah, the coach to me makes the biggest difference. And yeah, look, we've seen Texas Tech poured a ton of money in through NIL, and they got to the college football playoff and got bounced by Oregon. But I don't think Joe McGuire is a better coach than Curt Cignetti is. And like, yes, Indiana still needs to be very competitive in the NIL space. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, they can go out there with, pennies and scrounge up a roster capable of winning a national championship. But if they're close enough, if they hang around the top 5 of NIL spenders in the Big Ten, I have a feeling they're going to consistently continue to compete for Big Ten and national championships because of what I believe Curt Cignetti is as a coach.
So to go to this, let me read to you here. This is again really good. I'm trying to read a headline too that I want to get to, but this is from Courtney Levin, and you read and you listen to what he's got to say. He says, I question the sustainability of Indiana. No doubt that Cignetti is a phenomenal head coach, and he has won every place he's been. However, he himself has not been at any university for an extended period of time. He's done incredibly well by bringing in a lot of his JMU players and fighting for their 5th or 6th year of eligibility. The average starting age of that team last night was 23 years old. Sustainability to be able to recruit the top talent out of high school is still going to be very difficult. His team has got to win the portal for continued success. Another part of sustainability is whether or not he's going to be able to retain his staff. Everyone on that staff last night now has national champion on the resume, which will only create more opportunities for them at other schools.
And that is a very fair point to bring up, particularly when we talk about the staff, because as you're more successful, guess what? Your assistants are going to get poached for other jobs. You're going to have to replace those, and that's something that Nick Saban did a phenomenal job of. Felt like they had a different offensive coordinator every single year. They rotated through defensive guys once Kirby Smart took the Georgia job, but they continued to be one of the best in college football on a year-in, year-out basis. So we have not seen Curt Cignetti in that type of situation. That is a good point. You're going to lose a lot of talent from this year's roster because those guys were so old and so experienced. How do you replace that? Now, again, they've been working in the transfer portal. They've spent some money already. Got Josh Hoover coming in at quarterback. So I expect them to maybe not be from like that number of what their average starting age was. Maybe not that exact number, but probably something rivaling that to where they're still looked at as one of the older teams, because that is very much what Curt Cignetti seems to like in a college football program. But he is also right as well. You have to continue to recruit well at the high school level. We look around the best teams in college football, and yes, NIL and the portal is very important, but you still have to have that good foundation and base of high school recruiting to just have the floor underneath these guys, if nothing else.
And if you're wondering, yes, there's Indiana news today. Mendoza is transferring.
Correct.
Alberto is transferring.
Well, again, Hoover's coming in next year. I don't think he's gonna take the reins from his from one brother to the next. So I heard Georgia Tech's pretty high on his list.
Okay,
so he may be coming down this way a little bit.
Alberto Mendoza, a redshirt freshman.
Yes, who did play a couple times this year. He came in the Big Ten championship game when Fernando went down. But yeah, he's Josh. They got their quarterback next year. They're fine.
I mean, if Miami wants, is the deal with Darren Mensah complete? I guess it's not complete. Is it complete with Duke? Which, by the way, have you talked about this?
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that yet. That's the portal in today's world, man.
If you haven't seen it, we put that down for this week. If you haven't seen the Darren Mensah story, do a little reading and we'll come back on that.
He had a whole LeBron decision thing that he did.
It's very... let me say again, and we'll wrap up this segment and move to the NFL. And we do have some basketball tickets we're going to give away coming up at 1:30 today. But if you haven't read the Darren Mensah story out of Duke, it's all that's wrong with college football. Now, I've banged the drum that, and last night's a great example. The product on the field and watching a college football game is as good as I think it's ever been. J.C. Sherbert and I disagreed with that I think it was last week. J.C. talked about the FCS championship. I think
which was a great game.
It was, yeah. But but I think I think watching a college football game is as good as it's been, Tyler. You get to this portion of it now, the off season. It's as ugly, sticky, messy, nasty as it's been, and it's stomach-turning.
Well, we got to figure out this week what next year's championship format's going to look like. We still don't know that. They're arguing about 16 and 24 and
that's actually a decent conversation.
That is.
Read up.
Yeah, the next 9 months are the not fun part of college football.
Yeah. The portal... the portal is technically closed, but I don't know how that stops a player from being like, yeah, I don't like it here, I'm transferring.
Well, there's another lawsuit.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
if you got a lawyer, you can go anywhere.
I don't. So, anyway, we'll get to that Darren Mensah story later on this week. If you haven't read about it, read about it. That way you can join in the conversation. But yeah, Mendoza is transferring. Alberto, not Fernando, 6'2", 207-pound freshman, redshirt freshman for the Hoosiers. And it's because of, as Tyler pointed out, TCU starting quarterback Josh Hoover making his way to Bloomington. We'll come back. The NFL playoffs were really, really fun over the weekend. Close the door on the Bills. They're done. Trade them all. Trade Josh Allen for the number 1 draft pick. I don't care. Get rid of him. We'll tell you about it. It's the halftime show. Get your dialing fingers ready because coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll give you tickets to tonight's South Carolina-Oklahoma game, which thank you to Steven for bringing to my attention since 10 a.m. this morning. The spread has changed across the board, by the way, as I look at Vegas Insider. The whole entire board is now gone toward Oklahoma being a 1.5-point favorite tonight over the Gamecocks. Which one is the one of them's got Oklahoma at 2? Which one is that? That is, I believe, MGM. I believe one of them has Oklahoma at 2. So we'll talk about basketball coming up in the next segment. I've been talking college football. Indiana wins the national championship. You can go and vote on our poll question today. Who do you think is most likely to be back in the national championship game in the next 3 years? We'll get back into that conversation coming up later. But the NFL over the weekend.
Ooh, a lot of fun.
It's delivering. I told you this a while back. I didn't know if it was me being sick and watching more football, maybe being a little bit more limited. I wasn't sure what exactly it was, but I felt like I was watching more NFL this football season, and I felt like I was watching a lot more really good games. And aside from the 49ers Seahawks, it was another really good weekend with 2 of the 4 games going to overtime, and Houston, New England being a relatively good game. New England winning that one by 12.
Yeah, no, the NFL consistently delivers in its postseason. It is very rare compared to like what we see in college football when you have a blowout win like the Seahawks had over the 49ers, which, funny enough, they scored all the points they needed in the first 13 seconds. Raheem Shaheed's kickoff return was every point they needed to win that game, but that's more of the exception and not necessarily the rule. The competitive balance in the NFL is so good right now. When you watch during the season, anybody can beat anybody on a given Sunday. There's a reason there's only been one undefeated team in NFL history up to this point, and the playoffs are delivering. Again, I thought the Bills were going to win on the road at Denver. They didn't. I felt confident in the Rams winning on the road, but when Caleb Williams had his crazy touchdown, the Bears were driving in overtime, like, oh, the Bears are about to win this and go to the NFC Championship. Obviously, Caleb Williams throws an interception, and the rest is history there. But, man, just a ton of good games this weekend. I'm excited for the matchups. We get this upcoming weekend in the conference championships, and we should, unlike last year, should have a good Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a game that it's got to live up to the hype. But this weekend, Tyler, we'll get the 2 Sunday games. If you want to put a national championship on Saturday night there, I'm just saying, next year we're doing it on Monday.
Would you take the national championship being that late in January if it meant playing it on a Saturday?
Yeah, it's fine, whatever.
Even if you're talking about over 2 weeks between the semifinals?
Well, I'm assuming we're going to go to 16, which means we're going to add more games. Quite honestly, if you want to put this down to talk about later this week, if you and I get to be commissioner, independently, if we're a commissioner, and we were to make changes to college football, would one of them be kicking off college football more like the official start to college football being officially no week 0 and everything on Labor Day and giving everybody 2 byes and backing everything up essentially a week?
I think they're going to get there eventually.
Like no week 0 at all, none of this.
Well,
messing around
no, mine would be to move week 1 to week 0, because I think the NFL is going to be moving up their schedule to Labor Day when they go to an 18th game anyway. So you're not going to have that weekend to yourself like you have. So I think it more benefits you to start your season earlier, give everybody an extra bye, and then build it in more time. And we got to fix December. December's the biggest mess of all this to figure out. I know there's now Army Navy's protected for their broadcast window, which I don't know if that complicates things or not, but maybe you can schedule around that. I don't know, but if you give me the power to be commissioner, I can come up with some good ideas.
All right, well, let's go back. Yeah, we'll do that later this week then. All right, put that on the list of things for us to get to here. And now you got me thinking if I'm off anymore. I know I'm off next Monday to go to Charleston for a visit with MUSC. But this coming weekend, 3 o'clock on Sunday, New England and Denver. I would be lying if I said this isn't the game I'm a little bit more excited about. Drake May and Bo Nix.
Not Bo Nix.
Good point. Yeah, the ankle snapped in half there. Nasty to see. But what do you make of Drake May? Is this fluky? Is this a one-time deal, or are you buying Drake May? Are you buying the stock in Drake May?
I'm buying the stock in Drake May, and I think you saw glimpses of it a season ago. He did not have a good roster around him last year. They still don't have a ton around him necessarily in terms of help on offense. They got Diggs and guys like that now, got good running backs, but they're still working to build that. But last year, I don't think he had enough help around him, particularly on defense where that team wasn't good, but he learned a lot last year. You get a guy like Vrabel, who's already an established head coach, did good things in Tennessee, in that mess of an organization, to come in, return home to New England, and take them to the next level. I think Drake May, is he going to be Tom Brady and win 6 Super Bowls? Probably not, but I think he's going to be a consistent contender in the AFC for years to come. It's like, we thought the Patriots were done being that kind of team when the Belichick era ended and all that kind of stuff, but it seems like Vrabel has got him back on the right track.
That'll be the 3 o'clock game. Give me the Patriots in that game. Although it's hard to pick against the Broncos, but I'll take the Patriots.
If Bo Nix was playing, I'd feel more comfortable about picking the Broncos. But
I would take the Broncos in Mile High.
This guy hasn't thrown a pass in 2 years. I can't do it.
The 6:30 game actually might be the better of the two. This is a big one for Sam Darnold. Like, it feels like the reclamation project that is Sam Darnold. I don't know if he has to win a Super Bowl for us to be like, wow, okay, you were worthy of, what was he, the number 2 pick, I believe?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, you were worthy, and I blame now the Jets and the Panthers for not getting more out of you. But getting to the Super Bowl means something. And then for Matthew Stafford, this is a gorgeous end. This is lining up to be a gorgeous end to a career.
If Matt Stafford wins the Super Bowl in a couple weeks and potentially wins the MVP as well, should he just ride off into the sunset?
Yes.
Should you just call it a career there?
Yes.
Because, again, he seems to have found the fountain of youth this year, and I don't doubt his ability to play for a couple more seasons, but, I don't know if you're ever going to get yourself in the position to ride off with a championship and potential league MVP like you could be setting up to do here in a couple weeks.
Matthew Stafford is odd to me because his going to Georgia and everything that kind of came with it kind of correlated with me really starting to do recruiting in 05 and 06. So coming out of Dallas, I knew more about who he was as a prospect and what he was about and how great he was supposed to be. Like, he was, 6'3", I'm going back to my recruiting days, 6'3", 6'4". He was built like a man. He was a 17-year-old, but he was built like this.
He very much lived up to what the recruiting hype was, right? Stereotypical pocket passer quarterback, a lot of success at Georgia, number 1 pick, toiled in Detroit for a long time, but finally got with a franchise going in the right directions, won a Super Bowl, has a chance to do that in a couple weeks. But, yeah, he's one of those exceptions where, what they said of him as a 17-year-old ended up being very true.
Well, and this was before I really got to travel with JC and with Brian Bartow and everybody and do anything. And he had actually already committed to Georgia. He committed to Georgia very early. But these guys would come back from these recruiting events, the Elite 11s and everything, and they'd be like, man, I'd be sitting in on meetings as they'd be rating people, and they'd be like, this Stafford kid is physically for a 17-year-old is put together unlike anything we've ever seen, and throws it, 17,000 miles an hour and 6 miles, just like, and you were like, oh my God, is this guy, is he actually a god? Yeah. Like, what is he?
Fun fact, he was benched for Joe Cox in 2006 in his freshman year when they played Colorado.
Good boy.
And sat behind Joe Tereshinski III for much of that season before they figured out, hey, this kid's actually really good. We should just let him ride and figure it out, and that worked out okay.
I still remember watching him play in 06 against, or him and Noshan Marino. In 06 over...
Noshan didn't play in 06. They redshirted.
Was it 07 then?
07.
Okay, 07.
A lot of controversy around redshirting Noshan in 06.
Noshan and Stafford. Carolina won that one 16-12.
He never threw a touchdown against Carolina.
Is that right?
Yeah, Chris brought that up to me earlier.
Yeah, anyway.
Those games are weird, low-scoring games.
We'll get back into some NFL playoffs. Get back into the Buffalo Bills. What do you do now if you're a Bills fan? What do you do now if you're a Bills front office person? But coming up next, we'll get into some basketball, and we will give you some basketball tickets. That's right here on the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Dare.
All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Hopefully everybody's enjoying our new bumper music. I did finally get around to
Thank you.
putting those in. No offense to Fish. We love Jay. We love Fish, but we wanted our own flair to the show. So
Speak for yourself.
You're not a fan of Fish?
I
I don't mind them.
Couldn't name one song.
Well, you've heard plenty of them.
Couldn't name a
on
lot
here.
of fish. Couldn't name one song that there's a fish that they wrote it.
Well, we've got our own flair to the show now. So
My idea
good.
of fish singing is the little dude, the little
the big mouth Billy Bass.
Yeah, there you go.
Take me to the river in
Whatever.
the water.
I don't even know. He just
What, did we all have that in our bathroom?
Nope.
No. Where was yours?
That one flopped. Huh? I never had one.
You never had one.
No.
Why not? We had a bass and a catfish.
Let's not go down that lane.
Anyways, you know what? If I find one, I'll get it for you.
My birthday comes up in May.
I'm going to buy you a big mouth Billy Bass for your
Valentine's is next month.
birthday. I'm not going to buy you a Valentine's gift. I like you,
Awkward.
but not like that. Anyways, we're going to talk
Do we
about
add
basketball.
Baby Shark to the playlist?
Do they have like a?
There goes this segment.
Is there like a baby shark that's like a big mouth Billy Bass? They have that?
Not that I know of, but the song would fit well, I think, with our show.
Yeah. Well, we do. We can have Baby Shark and just do 6-7 for a whole segment, and that'll bring all the. We need a younger audience. That'll get the kids listening, right?
There are people right now to be like, I'd rather listen to this than hear y'all talk about
Anyways,
men's
let me-
basketball. I'd rather know what you're saying
Since
than
we're
have to.
fishing, let me reel this back in. We'll talk about men's basketball in a second. Tonight, they are taking on Oklahoma. The line has apparently shifted, but it
Yeah.
still is a winnable game for South Carolina. And if you want to go see them play the Sooners tonight over at Colonial Life Arena, 2 pairs of tickets right now to callers number 4 and 5 at 803-404-6100. Again, 2 pairs of tickets. Carolina men's basketball taking on Oklahoma, 803-404-6100. Callers number 4 and 5 right now.
So one pair each, though.
1 pair each. Yes, you do not get both pairs. Caller number 4, you get 1 pair. Caller number 5, you get another pair. And go.
Just watching. I just want to see.
know.
I just
Hey,
want to
here-
see.
Here they come. Here they
I
come.
wanted to see. I wanted to see. Good job. All right. All right. The phone lines are lighting.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you don't have as much confidence in the team, still can be fun to go to a game, have some concessions, hang out, watch the halftime show, whatever. So
It's not going to be Red Panda.
it's not. Not everything can be Red Panda. She can only be in one place at a time.
All right.
Is there a secondary halftime show that's like
The dog.
really
the
high?
dog. The dog.
Okay. Yeah.
The dog. The dog catching the. What are they? Frisbees.
Frisbees. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, there
that's
you
a
go.
good one.
And he's doing all the tricks and jumping around.
Yeah.
Well trained dog. What a bad segment. Bad segment. Still got 8 minutes to go. All right. Where do we go with this basketball program? Because I don't want to give up on them yet, Tyler. And I don't. Let me be all in all seriousness. When I say I don't want to give up on them, I don't want to sell the season out just yet. But I like to think that I'm a relatively smart man when it comes to college basketball, and I've seen this team. They obviously were competitive to an extent on Saturday against Auburn. It also took Auburn shooting 2 of 19 from three-point range, and essentially Auburn, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody. This is Bill Gunner's opinion. Tyler Head can agree with me or anybody else. It felt more like Auburn looked at the little stat sheet and read South Carolina's name and saw South Carolina's record and knew who South Carolina was and was like, this is a team that we continuously clobber. I believe it was at 10 straight or 11 straight.
It's a streak. I can't remember the number,
Yeah.
but it's been a while.
And I feel like Auburn just rolled into the gym already kind of making their plans for the evening, not worried about the big game. That's how it came across to me, and South Carolina tried to take advantage of it and simply couldn't.
Well, and we know from the previous Saturday that Auburn beat the same Arkansas
Right.
team that drug South Carolina by over 20 points, so they're capable of playing better. Didn't play their best game. I will say the Philip Jovic is a very impressive player, and he was the star of the show on Saturday night. But again, Carolina tried to take advantage. They got over that magical 30% from 3, which kind of seems to be their line in the sand of if they're going to win or lose a game. Got to just to tick over it, make an 8 of 25. But at the end of the day, not quite enough. What's that mean for momentum? I don't know, maybe nothing. Again, tonight's the most winnable game you've had in a couple weeks. You have it at home. take advantage of it. Again, does that change the course of the season? Not necessarily, but it's better than losing at the end of the day.
If you want to be honest, if you want to take my stance and be somewhat optimistic, you kind of look at the next 2 weeks as the last stand, to be quite honest. Oklahoma, the next 2 weeks to wrap up the month is Oklahoma here, A&M on the road Saturday, Florida, who's ranked 16th, at Colonial Life Arena. For some reason, we got to play them at 9 o'clock next Wednesday night because the SEC's punishing us for something I'm not sure we did. And then you wrap up with an LSU game on the 31st of the month that will be, once again, very winnable. Theoretically, you've got to go 3-1 in this stand. A&M is a combination of not good, but their losses are all high quality losses and competitive. They just took Tennessee to double overtime in Knoxville.
Yeah,
Then
they led most of that game.
Yeah, I mean they've played actually very well. They beat Auburn earlier this year by 2. They just beat Texas. Like, they're playing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Texas A&M, by the way, not Oklahoma tonight, but Texas A&M on Saturday. So A&M is playing better basketball than they were early on when they had those losses to Oklahoma State and Central Florida to begin the season. A&M actually is in the lead of the conference. But you look at the other 3, Oklahoma, LSU in particular, and you go, okay, then you sneak one out against Florida or A&M.
Yeah, and again, you've already beaten LSU, proving you do that. You'll get them back here coming up at the end of the month. So yeah, and again, you get 3 of those 4 at home, so that does benefit you. But yeah, if you're going to salvage something out of this year, it has to happen before the calendar turns to February, because by then we're going to know one way or the other which way this thing's going.
And I don't want to see that happen because from our job standpoint, and then obviously if you follow college basketball, there are very few mid-season firings.
Right.
College basketball is not college football and how those things are handled, Tyler. And if this team were to go 1-3 over the next stretch, and you're sitting at 2-7 going into February, it feels like we are all going to know what the writing on the wall is for March, and then you got to kind of slowly have that conversation. And it's not a conversation anybody enjoys having, but it is one that we'll have to have, and you'll start talking about the future, as I've said, the year of Jeremiah Donati.
Yeah, well, we're not telling you anything you don't know, and Coach Paris is not going to say it, but he is well aware of the pressure that's on him to get this thing turned around, because his job is essentially on the line if he doesn't, because you'd be talking about 3 of the 4 years as a head coach you've massively underachieved. And you can maybe, throw the first year out because it's the first year, but when you go to the tournament in your second year and then follow it up with potentially 2 really bad seasons in a row, there's not a lot of optimism. It creates a fan base that's not going to believe and invest in you the way that they need to. And yeah, again, it seems like that would be a position that Jeremiah Donati would have to make a tough call in terms of making a change. We're not there yet, but if this thing doesn't get turned around, that seems to be where this ship is headed.
Yeah, also if they were to lose 3 of the next 4, I'm looking at this as a 4-game. How do you get there and where do you go from there? But if you were to lose 3 of the next 4, you'd be sitting at 11-11 overall, and you would not feel good about a 500 record. And Tyler, I'm trying to go back and see if South Carolina ever, in what I would almost say is the modern era, has ever had a run this bad. When Frank Martin first came in, well, I guess the Steve Newton handoff to Eddie Fogler was awful, with 4 straight losing seasons before Fogler got it turned around.
Yeah.
I was thinking more of what Darren Horn handed off to Frank Martin. Martin had back-to-back losing seasons of 14-18 and 14-20 before turning things around in year 3 with at least a winning record of 17-16. So should South Carolina finish with a losing record, this year would be your worst stretch of basketball, with 3 out of 4 losing seasons since basically the early 90s, with Steve Newton generally regarded as one of the worst one of the worst coaches ever at the University of South Carolina, before he handed off to Eddie Fogler.
Yeah, again, things not trending in the right direction right now, and we'll see if starting tonight they can get things back on track.
803-404-6100. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 2. It's the halftime show. I'll try to do better this segment. I had a mental block last segment. Couldn't say Auburn.
Words are hard sometimes, man.
What made it worse was I knew I was saying it wrong, and then it became like throwing the. I was like Chuck Knobloch trying to get the ball from second to first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going well.
Do you have other words that you pronounce differently than people?
Oh, I think anybody that's listened would say yes. Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
Can I tell you my favorite one of yours?
Which one?
Water.
Water?
Water.
I don't even know what I say wrong with that. What do I say wrong with that
Well, it was when you used to do a commercial spot on here.
one? Oh,
You said water.
water?
Yeah, I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but it was always
That was a time
Funny to listen
Lexington was
to.
real country. But I moved out there when I was like 3.
okay.
Had to fit in. We had an area on Lexington at the high school. It was called Truck Row. Times were different. People brought their shotguns to school.
Sure.
We were a different school back then.
Yeah. I believe it.
Now,
I live in Lexington, I
now they
get it.
regulate that stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, I get it. No, I get it. Look,
Yeah, you're out in Lexington. Yeah, yeah.
I grew up in a town that's very similar in that way, where the things my dad told me they did when they were back in high school wouldn't fly today.
There's a lot of y'all listening right now that went to Lexington High School from like 90, well, earlier too, but like from like 85 to 2000. Like, heck yeah. Had my flag on my truck.
Wouldn't fly today.
I was like, all right.
Quite literally wouldn't fly today.
Literally wouldn't. 803-404. Yeah.
Bring a dead deer in the back of your truck and dress it during lunch.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was.
Got it during lunch
that
or
was-
whatever.
That was the common theme.
By the way, very believable that somebody would do that at Lexington High School.
Y'all my people, man. Y'all, I survived. I got out. Somehow.
You're still here.
Still here. English language is questionable. Making all the English teachers at Lexington proud of me these days.
Well, you know, you're a good enough public speaker where you've gotten by. I don't know how you're good at writing.
Oh, not good.
Not good.
John Whittle hated me.
I would say you had to write stuff for websites back in the day. Were you heavily edited?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Oh, yeah. The whole English language thing.
Was it spelling, punctuation? What was your problem?
Truthfully, patience.
Okay.
Like, I didn't have time to go back and reread. Like, just read some of my tweets.
Okay.
Just go
Fair.
read some of the tweets. You're like, dude, it's 104. What I don't know, whatever it is, characters, 200 characters.
Sure.
How do you make a mistake? Like, I'll tweet it out. And I'll be like, really should learn patience better to reread something before I hit send.
Yeah.
Thank goodness in text messages, there's an edit button now.
That is true. That's helpful.
Sorry, folks. I'm in a good mood.
I can tell.
We're in a good mood. We're having a good day. 803-404-6100. Let's go to John, who wants to talk men's basketball. John, how you doing? Thank you for staying on hold and listening to that gibberish. What do you got for me?
Yes, sir. I want to speak about the basketball program.
Knock yourself out, sir. The floor is yours.
I just don't see that they investing into that program because the time have changed. You can't expect a winning program and everybody is investing $9 and $10 million in their program to bring a couple of them dogs on their team, and you still investing $3 and $4 million. That's just enough for role players. That ain't enough to bring the stars there. You got to put money the same way you put money in that football program. You got to put money in that basketball program. And until they start doing that, these are the results that you're gonna get. And they're getting exactly what they're paying for.
Yeah, correct, and thank you for the phone call. John, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Chris and Wes can validate this, and maybe you can ask him tomorrow. I'm hearing the number, which is still low, to John's point, is closer to $8 million, $7 to $8 million that went into basketball. Again, these things, I don't know if this is. I don't know what's true or not when we come to NIL talk. None of y'all do. But I'm hearing $7 to $8 million is what was spent on the basketball program. I'm hearing that Lamont Paris thought it was enough to build a quality team. You know, again, whether that's true or not, I have no idea.
Yeah, I know it's more than it was a year ago. We've referenced many times, you know, the reporting a year ago was that Carolina and LSU both spent under $2 million on their basketball rosters, and they were the two teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament from the SEC. So I know it was a higher contribution. I don't know what that number is exactly, but they did put forth an attempt to invest more. Now, again, how that stacks up against Kentucky and Florida and Auburn and Tennessee and all those programs, I don't know. They invested more, but unfortunately, we're not seeing the benefit of that right now.
No, and and to John's point, I don't think that is something when you talk about an investment in basketball. I don't think it's just financial, by the way. I think that from the top down, there's got to be an investment in South Carolina basketball if South Carolina wants to grow, whether that's with Lamont Paris or another coach. There's got to be an investment in South Carolina basketball unlike they've ever done. Indiana, you don't have to be on the same level as Indiana football. Let's be clear about that. That's the exception to the rule.
Right.
But for South Carolina basketball to take a step, there has to be an investment, not just in NIL, but in marketing and everything. We'll talk more about that, get back into the transfer portal and the national championship game. Hour 3 on the way. Oh, crank up the band. It is the 2 o'clock hour on the halftime show. A couple of y'all weighing in with your Lexington memories. Thank you for that. A couple of y'all weighing in with thoughts on NIL for basketball. Kevin says South Carolina has women's basketball NIL that currently is more important than men's NIL. Put men's basketball at a disadvantage compared to other universities.
Now, do you mean that from the standpoint they spend more on women's? Because I don't know if that's true or not.
Here's what I know, and it's limited because we don't get the same. I don't feel like I get the same information for basketball that I do for football. I feel like football, they're a little more free sharing down there with information, or they lie more. I don't know, one of the two. Basketball is not as bad as y'all make it out to be. However, it is bottom half of the SEC, and actually it's bottom quarter of the SEC. I shouldn't say half. Half is the SEC's now a big league. Half.
So you're 12th or worse is what
right.
you're telling me.
Yeah, and I believe that. I thoroughly believe that. I will go to bat for that and say that while South Carolina, it's hard for me to contradict. I feel like I'm contradicting myself. They don't spend as much as they should. I'm with that on men's basketball. And quite frankly, that hurts. And then I don't think that the previous, not Frank Martin, but the previous administration, while the previous administration did a million things right, I think, for Williams-Brice Stadium, and while I think Jeremiah Donati is doing a million things right for fixing the stadium and building the game day atmosphere and doing all those great things, I don't think they're doing that for basketball.
Okay.
And that's got to be addressed, and that's got to be addressed like ASAP to help to, number one, attract a coach if that is the direction they have to go.
Right.
Or B, to help Lamont Paris attract players if that is whatever direction you want to choose to go. Now, with that all being said, given the way college basketball is set up, can you build a competitive roster off of what they're providing? Yes.
Yeah.
I guess that's where I would do. Like, I'm not saying you're building a roster that I would line up and throw out there and be like, well, that's a definite NCAA tournament team. But I would say that they could build a roster that should have them on the bubble and competitive.
2 years ago, you weren't outbidding anybody for the best talent, and you still put together a roster that was good enough to get you to the tournament. Now, again, that's kind of become the gold standard of comparison around here because none of these other teams have really been close to that. But you've proven that you can hit it without having to go out there and get the most expensive talent. It's just these past 2 years that hasn't been there.
Yeah, well, I hate to say it, that's the anomaly of the situation for South Carolina in that instance. And to make matters worse, if you want to go back, South Carolina in their last 23 conference games, they're 3-20. In basketball. And so we'll see tonight, South Carolina and Oklahoma over at Colonial Life Arena. We'll have the coverage for you set up this afternoon, 6:30 for the pregame, 7 o'clock tip-off. Again, Oklahoma in town. That line has now moved to the Sooners being favored by 1.5 to 2, depending on where you look at. Again, coverage for you right here, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip-off. Gamecocks and Sooners women, by the way, will host Oklahoma coming up on Thursday. You can hear that game on B106.7. Last night, College Football National Championship, and let's hit a couple different topics on this. Number one, I have put out the poll question, and I have asked about the sustainability of both of these programs, really, Tyler, because, let's remember, today is the 20th, so we're over a month removed from, hey, should Miami be in this thing over Notre Dame?
Right. Yeah, that kind of seems like an afterthought. I did think it was funny last night that, Marcus Freeman was on the desk there, and of course he played Miami this year and lost, and they beat Indiana in the open round a year ago, so definitely has the knowledge of playing both teams. But yeah, and look, there's still the Notre Dame contingent that's still making that argument and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think what was beating A&M on the road, should that have ended the conversation there, or do they need to make it to a national championship to really validate, hey, we definitely needed to be in this thing?
No, I don't think so. I think because of the other two teams that got in over Notre Dame who didn't deserve to be in, who in my college football playoff has no business being in, that is Tulane and James Madison, that it's not Miami's fault that stupid rules kept Notre Dame out.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. and Miami won the game head-to-head. And I didn't kind of agree with it. There were things, look, I could have gone either way with Miami or Notre Dame. Miami had the head-to-head. Notre Dame, technically, I guess, had the better losses. I guess.
And Notre Dame looked better by season's end, and that kind of seemed like the way the committee was viewing it in terms of the rankings. And then at the last minute, they decide to flip them, which that's where if Notre Dame had been behind Miami the entire time, there's no argument.
Right.
But when you spend 4 weeks saying, hey,
Good
we
point.
think you're better, and then after a weekend in which neither team plays a game, they switch it, I can understand the frustration from Notre Dame's standpoint on why they were upset. But again, Miami has done just short of everything in terms of winning the national championship to prove that they deserve to be in.
I'm fine with them being in there. And look, they made the run, but it led me to the poll question. They lose Carson Beck. Indiana loses Fernando Mendoza. It looks like Darren Mensah, the former Duke quarterback, is going to go down to Miami this coming season. And it looks like Miami's going to play an odd game. It looks like under Mario Cristobal, Miami's going to play an odd game of we're taking your quarterback every year. And then they look around the country and go,
Yeah.
we want you at the U.
If I'm a quarterback out of high school, do I even look at Miami?
Yeah, you consider, yeah. I mean, if they're going to promise you that you're going to be the starter your freshman year, I think any quarterback's starting to do that. I think any quarterback's starting to say, well, when do I get to be a starter? My freshman or my redshirt freshman year? I feel like most quarterbacks are saying, I'll wait for you 1 year.
And then after that,
And then you got to play me. But I put a poll question out on Twitter. You can go to Twitter at Will, W-I-L, Gunter, G-U-N-T-R. He is at TylerHead18. Our wonderful producer, Captain David Ayer, is at Cap, C-A-P-T, Dave on air, if you want to follow him. And right now, Tyler, as we're about 2 hours into it, 50-50 is the split on the vote.
Okay.
Who will more likely be back in the national championship game in the next 3 years, Miami or Indiana? Because last night, to me, it raises the question of sustainability, or if we hit that point in time with, I don't know if parity is the right word, but now where every year we're looking at 12 to 15 to 20 teams that are all capable of making a run to the national, making a run, which then puts them in play to win a national championship. But I think that's where we're at now, as opposed to probably when it was just the Alabamas of the world.
Yeah, I mean, during most of the 4-team era, realistically, you'd look every single year going into the season and say, all right, there's about, in a good year, 7 to 8 teams that realistically could win the thing. And now with the talent being spread out so much, I think going into any season, again, we'll get into what the way too early top 25 looks like. You say, all right, I kind of see somewhere between 15 to 16 teams that could go based on what I think, what they've done with the roster and all those kind of things. And again, now you have the opportunity, compared to years past with the BCS era and the 14 playoff, if you come out of the gates kind of clunky and maybe have an early loss, assuming it's not against a team that's also in the mix for the playoff like Notre Dame, if you're playing your best football late and you get in, you can go on a run, right? Like, you don't have to be a conference champion. You don't have to be a top 4 seed. Like, if you're playing your best football in December and they let you in, you can still win a championship that way, which is exactly what we saw Miami almost do.
As far as the game last night, it felt, and we've kind of discussed this, we haven't talked too much about the game in and of itself and how it kind of played out, but Kirk Cignetti last night, the decision to go for it on 4th and 5, up 17-14, as it's happening, as I'm watching it in real time, I'm like, this is an awful decision. And, of course, they called the quarterback draw. It was interesting post-game to hear Cignetti lay it out that, hey, we drew that play up specifically for a coverage that Miami had, that we were hoping Miami was in, and Miami ran the coverage, the 2 deep safety coverage that we were hoping for. Miami, Cignetti said they changed the blocking for Mendoza to offset what Miami was doing in that coverage, and it opened up the hole. And then, listen, the dude won the guy who we all questioned. That was his signature moment last night, spinning, twirling, running over guys, and then diving to go up 24-14.
Yeah, no, it was a gutsy play, gutsy call. I said last night that took some stones to make that call and what that situation was. But this is a team, in Indiana that had one of the best 3rd down conversion units in the entire country, and routinely they were doing that on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6s. So really not that much of a difference when you're doing it on 4th down there, and obviously made the right call. I did think it was interesting that later in the game, when they had the opportunity to kind of go for the kill to put the game away, they chose not to go for it, and they decided to kick the field goal anyway. Again, now that they've obviously won the game, that does end up being a big deal. But, let's say that Miami does go down the field and score a touchdown with no time left, and that question of should they have gone for it on that fourth down when they've been so successful earlier in the game would have come up.
Total yards last night, Miami outgains Indiana. Again, in total yards, 342 to 317. Miami outpasses them 232 to 186. Fernando Mendoza last night, 16 to 27 for a $186 there passing. Miami rushes for 110 yards, but again, you had one really long run on that to get to that number. Time of possession, I think especially in the first half, Indiana dominates time of possession by 13 minutes.
Yeah. Again, Miami did all of nothing in the first half offensively. Indiana locked him down good, but Miami came out of the gate swinging in the second half and made it competitive. Again, Indiana took a 10-point lead after that blocked field goal, but Miami was able to very quickly tighten the game back up and obviously get it back within one score on a couple different occasions. So they never let the game get away from them, but I also never really felt like Indiana was in too much danger of losing the lead during the game.
Yeah, I told Austin when Indiana got the ball, when Miami got the ball down 6 there at the very end with a chance to go down and win it. I was like, man, it doesn't feel like Miami should be here, but here they are. Real quick, we'll hit and then we'll hit a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about this preseason top 25 and we'll giggle and laugh and share with you what Brandon Marcello with CBS Sports has put out. A lot of tweets last night, if you were on social media, about officiating and pass interference. What was your take on the officiating and how it impacted this particular game?
At the end of the day, I don't think it had a severe impact on it. It is interesting that, some crews do let guys play a little bit more, which I'm more for. I'd rather see fewer flags than more, but that opens you up to more scrutiny when you are starting to call those, especially late in games when it becomes very, very critical. Overall, I don't think the refs took too much away from the game compared to maybe what we saw in some of the NFL games over the weekend, but that was a crew that definitely seemed open to letting them play last night.
Just one turnover, a very clean game. 12 total for both teams, 12 total penalties, 98 yards, 7 penalties for 60 yards against Miami, 5 for 38. Against Indiana last night. And again, you look at the overall stats. Carson Beck, 19 of 32, a touchdown, the one interception there on the final pass play of the game. I did wonder. I'm always leery and nervous of the very end game taking the knee, especially when you're backed up as far as.
Yeah, they were in a precarious spot there.
Because you don't want anybody. I don't want to see anybody get hurt in that situation. Miami knew that a fumble or something could alter the game, so they're still playing ultra hard and
sure.
And but we get out of there, and then Indiana gets the confetti dropped on them, and Kirk Cignetti and the Hoosiers win their first ever national championship. All right, well, that's done. Season's over. It's time to move on. And CBS Sports and Brandon Marcello have done just that for us, Tyler. We've got a way too early top 25. Where is Indiana? And who made it in South Carolina or Clemson? Who would you think is more likely to be in a way too early top 25? The Gamecocks or the Tigers? We'll share that with you when we come back. It's the Halftime Show. Almost 2:20 on a Tuesday. Hopefully you're rolling through and at least through 2 hours and 20 minutes. I've not been perfect, but I've not accused it of being a Monday yet. So I'll take that success and we'll roll for another 40 minutes before we hand things over to Terry and I believe Jay this afternoon. And they'll carry you on home till 6 o'clock tonight. And then again, reminder of 6:30 pregame with Derek Scott and Casey Manning for South Carolina, Oklahoma, 7 o'clock tip-off for the Gamecocks and the Sooners, where I was looking at Vegas Insider earlier across the board. They give me the spread for across the board, and the Sooners now favored in that ball game. And we'll talk some basketball tomorrow as we kind of, I don't know if it's fair to say have a resolution. I think maybe some of y'all in your mind have already come to a resolution on basketball and what the future holds. And that to me, by the way, when I talk basketball with you, it's not going to be so much about this team and this season and what's happening now. It's about where are we going with this thing? What is transpiring moving forward with South Carolina basketball? We're talking a lot now about South Carolina football and the transfer portal and getting this thing fixed. Inexcusable to be 4-8 anymore. Inexcusable to miss bowls. Inexcusable for this. Shane Beamer says playoffs next year. Fine. We're talking what happens moving this football program forward. Well, the same discussion will need to be had, obviously, as it pertains to basketball now, and baseball when it comes around in June, and how these programs that you support and that many of you pay money for become a success.
Yeah, this is critical year. Again, men's basketball has not gotten off to the hottest start, but for all of these programs, what happened last year was unacceptable, and you have to take a significant step forward to keep on going here. Again, for like baseball, I don't even know if people want to give Maneri a pass for being year number one because of what his pedigree is, but he better figure it out in year number two. We've talked at length about Beamer and next year being critical considering the step back that you took this year. And again, men's basketball is just talking about, like, better figure something out in these next handful of games and get some kind of footing underneath you in conference play, or else this just keeps going in the wrong direction. Yeah,
and again, to me, it's about the future, and there's not going to be, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to put anybody down over there on this, but in my opinion, this season is going to be, it's going where it's going to go, and it's not a good place, but that's got to change moving forward, and there has to be a higher if we're going to have a higher expectation for football, there's going to be a higher expectation for basketball. There's really going to be a higher expectation across the board by South Carolina fans, and we'll continue to debate that really over the length of the spring as we get closer to baseball season and we wrap up basketball season and we get you closer to SEC Media Day in July, Media Days, and then football season. 803-404-6100. So speaking of which, CBS Sports, Brandon Marcello, and this is dumb. I've done this. I do this. I think in some way, shape, or form, if you work in sports media, you do these things, and they are what they are. Take them with a grain of salt. There's no reason to be upset about it or anything. But the way too early top 25, Tyler Head.
That's right. And look, this is one of those things that nobody can prove you wrong on for almost a calendar year. So you can ride with
we don't remember this time. We don't remember what the way too early preseason polls for 2025 were last. We know South Carolina was high.
Yeah,
but we don't remember.
It's one. And look, there's going to be, if you had to get, and talking like national college football media, I don't care what a local newspaper says, but how many different polls are going to be released over the course of the next 9 months and trying to predict what next year is going to look like?
There'll be the way too early preseason poll. There'll be the way too early poll. There'll be the somewhat preseason poll, and then there'll be the thing we get to in August. But this is Brandon Marcello putting out. Now, let's start with his 1 through 5 here.
All right.
1 through 5. All have returning quarterbacks. Ohio State at 1 with Julian Sayin. 2 is Arch Manning in Texas. 3 is Gunnar Stockton in Georgia. 4 is what we now know to be Dante Moore in Oregon. And 5 is C.J. Carr and Notre Dame. Any problems with those 5?
No. Again, you can pick apart what order they're in, but I feel like in today's world of college football, a top 5 featuring those 5 teams is probably not going to be wrong in terms of projecting forward, because
Sure.
you can almost guarantee that almost all those teams are probably going to be in the playoff the following year. Maybe interchange a couple, but Texas and Notre Dame didn't make it in that this year. But again, they're going to show up in most top 25s, pretty highly ranked given what they have coming back and obviously what they're able to do in the portal as well.
6 through 10, Marcel Reed and the former and the playoff team that was Texas A&M at 6. Number 7 is the new money pit, which is Texas Tech, and they'll have now Brandon Sorsby at quarterback. Number 8 is Indiana. I think that's low. I think it's low. I'm on the Kirk Cignetti bandwagon. I'd have Indiana in top 3. They've proved it to me. But Indiana at number 8. Number 9 is going to be Kyle Whittingham's new football team, Michigan, with Bryce Underwood. And number 10, I think this was the first team that I look at, and I'm like, a little high there. But it'll be the return of John Mateer at quarterback for Oklahoma and Brent Venables. They obviously are a playoff team this year as well.
Yeah, they got things to figure out on offense this offseason, and I haven't dove deep enough in to see what they've done in the portal, but I'm sure they've made some movement and brought in some guys. I think it's one of those things that more often than not, if you just kind of assume Oklahoma's going to be in the top 15, you're probably not wrong. Again, Venables was on a hotter seat going into this past year and got himself off by making the playoff, and we'll see if he can keep that going.
So to recap, Brandon Marcello, CBS Sports is where you can check this out. But his way too early top 10, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Indiana, Michigan, Oklahoma. You're starting to see that Texas oil money kick in. Watch me some Landman on Sunday night. And I'm seeing that money kick in when you see Texas, when you see A&M, and when you see Texas Tech in 3 of the top 10 teams there. 11 through 15, Southern Cal, Lincoln Riley. Time for him to do something, right?
This seems like it's got to be the year where they kind of put up or shut up, because going into a third year of an expanded playoff with how valuable that roster is and what Lincoln Riley is supposed to be as an offensive mind, it would be inexcusable to miss that 3 years in a row.
12 is Kalani Sitake and BYU. 13 is the runner-up from last night, who is looking for a quarterback, Miami. So, again, you got number 8 is Indiana. Number 13 is Miami. Number 14, it's kind of questionable here, LSU and Lane Kiffin. Sam Levitt will be the quarterback. And number 15 is quarterback-less. They'll get one. Don't worry. They got freshmen. But Alabama.
Yeah, look, Lane Kiffin's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt in a lot of these rankings because he's going to LSU. Funny enough, they're ranked above Ole Miss, who obviously made the playoff and got to the semifinals there. But, yeah, I have a feeling with what they're going to spend on the roster, it's probably going to be safe to assume they're going to be in top 12s to top 15s in most rankings going into the season. 16
through 20 is going to be Louisville, Missouri at 17. 18 will be Utah. 19 is Washington. Thank goodness they got their quarterback situation worked out. And Mississippi at 20. Anything there from you?
No, I think you're obviously banking on a guy like Austin Simmons going to Missouri and really sparking that offense. We'll see if he's obviously able to do that. And I think with Ole Miss, it's like to be determined on Trinidad Chambliss. If you can get more eligibility, then you'd probably be higher, but you don't know that as of right now.
21 through 25 of Brandon Marcello, CBSSports.com's way too early top 25. Houston at 21, Penn State and new coach Matt Campbell at 22. 23 is SMU. 24 is James Franklin and Virginia Tech. And rounding it out at number 25, your University of South Carolina Gamecocks.
I mean, we've talked about how good of an offseason they've had so far. You've made what we think are the right hires. You've brought in a lot of production from the transfer portal. You have your star players coming back. Like, I can understand why a lot of people would look at that and say, all right, that team should probably be a lot more competitive next year.
At first, I looked at this, to your point, at first I looked at this and went, that's hilarious. And then I started thinking, like, I think this is what you're going to see. I think you're right. I think this is what you're going to see for most way too early projections because Lenore Sellers is going to get some hype. Dylan Stewart is back. Nick Harbor's coming in. I don't know what else they're going to look to say, the addition of Kendall Browse. I think despite being a 4-8 team, you're going to see South Carolina on these national analysts showing up between 21 and 25 for most preseason polls.
You're hoping that South Carolina becomes the epitome of how much can change in 1 year, right? We've seen teams go from like 6-6 at Oklahoma a year ago to making the playoff, and that comes with a lot of changes in the offseason, coordinators, bringing in talent, all that kind of stuff, and you're hoping what Carolina's done falls in that same path.
So think about this, and we'll answer this on the other side. Do you want South Carolina to be ranked between 20 and 25, lower end? Do you want that publicity going into 2026?
Good question.
We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 2:35 as we head toward closing this thing up. And when I last left you, and Tyler and I last left you, we said, well, would you want South Carolina or Clemson, if you want to go down that path, to be ranked, preseason ranked? I thought about this morning, Tyler, when I saw this, and my initial thought is, ha, 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 ha. And then I thought more about it. And I thought, you know what? This is a good thing. I would rather South Carolina have preseason publicity. Look, and it's because some of you are weighing in. Quarter says I would not want South Carolina to be ranked. I always like to downplay my skills and abilities. Then if you're average, you look good. If you're good, you look great. If you're too high on your abilities and you look average, you look bad. I understand.
Oh, that's fair.
Another texter says, and I agree with this, preseason rankings don't matter, but Carolina nor Clemson need to be ranked because they will both find ways to choke again next year. I'm not arguing with y'all on that. What I am saying is, well, I was about to yell. It's time. I can't speak for Clemson, but I can speak for South Carolina. It's time to live up to that. It's time to stop being afraid of that. And, yeah, South Carolina absolutely fell on its nose and broke it this year. I mean, tripped, acted like they never walked before. You were a preseason top 15, and you didn't. You're 4-8. I got it. I totally understand where you're all coming from. But you know what? I want South Carolina to be ranked. I want a little bit of publicity. I want them to have to live up to the hype or whatever it is that they get. You can't be afraid of it. And preseason polls mean nothing, Tyler. Look, what Clemson was, what was it? Clemson was 2 and Penn State was 3.
2 or 3, yeah. The Texas was 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of them ended up, Texas rebounded, but none of them had the seasons they wanted to.
This isn't about whether the polls matter or anything like that, but it is about what we talk about more specifically in this portion of the country for the next 9 months, and that's college football and who's going to be great. There's your poll. We aren't 24 hours removed from the national championship, and Brandon Marcello's already put out a way too early, which is ridiculous. I get it. We don't even know who's going to finish up with the portal.
But, hey, his guess is as good as ours.
It is.
Yeah.
But my point is that's what we do.
Sure.
And so if you want to poo-poo the poll and be like, well, they don't matter. I totally get it.
It creates narratives, right? And I can understand the sentiment that some of the people bring up because when you look at the Beamer era, the 2 best seasons that they've had so far came off of years where nobody really expected much out of them, particularly 2 years ago when he came off 5-7 and nobody paid you any attention. He went out there and really surprised most of the college football world with the season that you had. But if this is going to continue with the Beamer era, it comes to a point where you have to be consistent enough to where you're going to have some hype, right? You can't just expect, they're not going to talk about us every single year because that means you've had a disappointing year from the season before. At some point, you have to get used to handling expectations. And again, it's kind of the make or break year to do that.
Yeah, and again, to portion of this, South Carolina's in a program that needs publicity. All right, they need a little bit of relevance. They need to have this happening to build some form of momentum. And let me also say this. You have a schedule right now that is conducive to coming out of the gate and building some hype around you. Now, you can fall flat on your face. October certainly opens the door to falling flat on your face. I'm not trying to project and predict South Carolina to do anything here that's of grand illusion in 2026. I'm only talking about the next 9 months and what the next 9 months are going to be when we talk about top 25 teams, whether you like discuss. If you don't like discussing, I got really bad news for you. That's what happens around here, not just at South Carolina, but it's going to happen at Miami. It's going to happen at Notre Dame. It's going to happen at North Carolina. It's going to happen at Georgia. People are going to start talking about their teams because college football is the king around here, and we're already talking about 2026. But the point being on this is I think South Carolina needs the publicity. You take the publicity. You want to be preseason ranked.
Yeah, and I think
and these little things, Tyler.
There's a big difference between being preseason ranked in the top 15
Very
and
true.
being ranked fringe of the top 25, because last year's rankings basically said you're going to be a team in contention for the playoff once again like you were a year ago. We'll see if you can take that next step forward. This year, it's like, all right, we think you're going to be pretty good, but you still got work to do to get yourself in that conversation of being one of the 12 or 16 or however many teams are going to be in the playoff this next coming year. So I think the bar is a little bit lower. Because if you're going to be if you're going to be ranked 25th, that's assuming in the SEC you're probably like 8-4, right? Like that's a significant step forward from what it was a year ago, but it's still not to the level of, again, what Beamer said at the end of the season. Hey, we're going to be in the mix for the playoff again a year from now. Talking about the Clemson game, that wouldn't live up to those expectations, but it would be a significant step back in the right direction. And I'd feel pretty comfortable in saying then you have Beamer back in 2027 if you get there.
Well, and you make a great point about what Shane said, and this is a conversation that will also be had as we move toward August and then September about how he may have painted himself into a corner, and it's hard to take things back. It's really, we saw that Steve Spurrier, when he said back in the day, was not the same concept, but I might only coach 2 or 3 more years. It's hard to walk those things back. And when Shane Beamer said, we're going to be sitting here, what was it, on whatever playoff night, waiting to see where we're at, because a texter weighs in and says, if you have a head coach saying that he is mad that he is not in the playoffs, you better expect to be ranked.
You better. Yeah. And, if you get to the month of November again and Carolina's just fighting to try and make a bowl game and you ask the question to Beamer, hey, what happened? You don't want to hear excuses. Like, well, we thought we were going to have this. We didn't have this. It's like, no, man, you put that bulletin board material up there yourself. You told us what you were shooting for. And if you come up short of that, we're going to look solely at you and say, you're the reason why it didn't happen.
You're exactly right. And so, you see these little things, and again, they're fodder for people like Tyler and Captain Dave and myself to talk about on Sports Talk Radio. They mean nothing. Ohio State is not now 12-0 and in the playoff because they're the number 1 team in the way too early top 25, according to Brandon Marcello. It means nothing, but it is fodder for us to talk about and look at and be like, "Whoa, okay." Because I'll just real quick, let's kind of run down this. I instantly look at Michigan at number 9, and I'm like, that's a lot of expectation in Kyle Whittingham's first year, but with what's supposed to be a stud quarterback of Bryce Underwood, and that raises my expectation of him from an outsider's perspective looking in.
Well, and you're just a program that's used to being successful these past couple of years, and obviously Sherrone Moore's not there anymore. They weren't national championship good, but they were still a solid team the past 2 years. They made it to the LyQuest Bowl and the Citrus Bowl in his 2 years, which is still very solid despite not making it into the playoffs. So your expectations, even in a first year with an experienced coach like Kyle Whittingham, is going to be really, really high at a place like Michigan, and we'll obviously see if they can live up to it. Again, Carolina doesn't quite have that same pedigree, but when you're bringing the talent that you have, when you're bringing back the talent that you have, when you're making the coaching hires that you have, I think a lot of people are going to look at you as the offseason goes along and say, hey, yeah, that team should be significantly better than they were a year ago.
And, just another team on this list. Again, this is why I look, don't get me wrong, I enjoy talking about these preseason polls because it gives us something to talk about and kind of laugh about. But we will give you a breaking story coming up in the next segment. Then we'll talk more about it tomorrow with Miami, fresh off of where they're at. But Miami's looking for a quarterback. Well, the guy I guess they're looking for is Darren Mensah. He might be in a little bit of hot water with Duke. Mm-hmm. We don't know who Miami's quarterback is. And, Tyler, if I were to tell you, hey, rank somebody without knowing their quarterback, where would you put them? Anybody.
I can't put you in the top 20 without knowing your quarterback situation.
Well, we got Miami at 13. And that's so – there's no reason to get mad at these things and be like, but they are what they are, and you're going to see a whole bunch more. That was CBS Sports. Let me see here real quick. As ESPN, normally ESPN's pretty, okay. Mark Schlabach has one up as well. I didn't even scroll that far down. They've got a bunch of articles up on last night. He's got Indiana at 1, Texas at 2, Notre Dame at 3, Georgia at 4, Oregon at 5. Hey, how does that suit you there?
That's fine, I guess.
He's got Miami at 8. He does in here specifically mention Darren Mensah now being their quarterback.
Yeah, that was assumed at that point in time. We don't
Yeah.
know yet.
Just scanning very quickly. This is ESPN's way too early top 25. Alabama's at 21, Penn State's at 22, Tennessee's at 24. South Carolina, I do not see in there. We'll come back and we'll wrap up the program. It's the halftime show. I didn't think to look at ESPN's until just now, but I should have. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, where for over 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and it is that proven history, 30-plus years of taking care of their customers, that is your assurance that their professionals will get the job done in a safe, pleasing, and timely manner for you and your facility. So whether it's your home or your business, Mid-State Roofing is there for you. And it's whether you're here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, Aiken, Charleston, Augusta, wherever you're at in this great state, Mid-State Roofing is there to help you. You just got to give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. See what Mid-State Roofing can do for you. Because you know what they say, if you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Wrapping it all up, On your Tuesday, tomorrow afternoon, J.C. Sherbert will join me from 2:15 to 3 o'clock. But make sure you're here bright and early. I say bright and early, as quickly as you can be for the program. Monty Lee will join us right off the bat at 12 o'clock. He's got to join us right off the bat in order to get the batting practice. So we will catch up and talk a little baseball tomorrow, Tyler, as we are not far away from first pitch. I know we didn't catch up with Jamie Bradford yesterday, but I'm sure Jamie Bradford can barely contain himself now that football is over and baseball is just a few weeks away.
We're inside a month. He can smell the grass being cut and the hot dogs being grilled and all that kind of stuff, and can look forward to, I don't know, what'll probably be a freezing weekend in mid-February to start baseball, because that seems to kind of be customary around here.
Let's hope we get it out of the way this coming weekend. If you haven't seen the weather forecast for this weekend, not expected to be good. John Whittle reports that coming up on Thursday and Friday, there will be scrimmages taking place over at Founders Park, 3:15 for both days, 6.5 innings on Thursday, 6 innings on Friday. I will get confirmation that those will be open to the public, but baseball not far away, and we'll be joined by Monty Lee coming up tomorrow at noon. We kind of wrap things up. Indiana, Miami last night. You know, one of the storylines of this that you don't hear is the Big Ten pounding their chest and saying 3 in a row.
True.
Whereas the SEC,
I feel like we're going to hear it a lot this offseason.
the SEC, and look, and I'm all for it. I go to the you went this year, the big sign on the billboards out back. I think this year, I think were we in Tampa this year for SEC Media Days?
That's correct.
The big sign that says it just means more, and so forth and so on. One of I think the questions of the offseason is going to be is, how much does this hurt the pride of the SEC? Not only have you not won a championship in 3 years, you haven't had a team in the national championship in the last 3 years.
I think it's one of those things that it's going to hurt until you see how many SEC players get drafted high in the NFL draft. Then it kind of shifts back to, oh, well, they're still maybe the most talented league. Because that's the thing is, like, you know, this people can talk about the conspiracy of the SEC being projected up as the best. Well, the NFL still pulls the majority of their talent from the SEC, and that hasn't really changed. Big Ten's up there, too, in terms of competitiveness. But, like, the SEC didn't suddenly forget how to play football. The talent spread out a lot more, and, yeah, they haven't had a team in the national championship. I don't believe – and, look, I don't think any league is going to go on the run that the SEC did from 2006 basically until – when Georgia won the most recent national championship ever again. I think we're going to see that much more parity across the board, but I'm not ready to stick a fork in the SEC and say it's a poverty league now.
Look, I find it somewhat comical. I have no problem chanting SEC. I have no problem pulling for your league as kind of a sign of strength. But I
don't care.
But I do find it comical when you do it, and the SEC does it better than anybody, or does it louder than anybody. When now all of a sudden you can't back it up in the Big Ten, because what you just said is true. There will probably be more players picked. Probably, I haven't looked at draft boards and I haven't paid all attention. I'm not an NFL draft guy, but you're probably right. The SEC will probably have way more people picked, and they'll probably have way more people picked in the first round. But it feels kind of like hollow when you aren't you don't have national champions, let alone your team playing for the national championship the last 3 years.
When you were watching Miami play Ole Miss the other week, were you hoping Ole Miss won for the sake of the conference? I didn't care.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Yeah, like if an SEC team wins, cool, but like that doesn't affect my perception of the league necessarily. And I think we all understand there's more parity across college football now. So it makes sense that things are looking a little bit different.
Well, it's because of how the SEC goes about promoting itself,
sure,
right?
And you know what? They set themselves up for that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They absolutely did.
And it's because of how Greg Sankey is going to try and position himself this offseason to control the upcoming playoff, right?
Yep.
In terms of, I'm the power booster, we're the power league, when right now it's the Big Ten who can point and say, really? Not only do we have the last 3 champions, we've done it with 3 different teams, much like you claimed so much about how you did it in the 2010s.
Yeah, it's starting to go back. I'd love to be inside those rooms, right, when these powers that be are meeting and they got a deadline later on this week to decide on next year's playoff format. Like, do Petitti and Sankey throw shots at each other like that? Like, well, we're the SEC. Well, you hadn't played for a championship in 3 years, and we've won all 3 of those. Like, do they get that petty about this? I'd love to know.
I would love to know. It's Petiti, right?
Petiti, yeah.
I'd love Petiti to just be like, hey, we hadn't seen one of your teams in the championship game in 3.
Yeah.
Y'all still play? Like,
Like,
does it still mean more to y'all?
Greg, I didn't see you on the sidelines on Monday night. Oh, that's right. You didn't have a team in the championship game again. Like, do the other conferences sit around and go, ooh, and, like, make a thing out of it? I'd love to be in the room.
And then you got the ACC being like, at least we got a team in the championship.
And they're like, sit down and shut up. Dad's talking.
If you're going to brag about it, if you're going to run your mouth, which the SEC did, and you go 3 straight years,